when you get into that, there's a document called the Order of the Speeches, okay? It's big, and there's one page for each speaker on your team. So before you dig into that and get overwhelmed, what I'd rather have you do is meet with your teams, talk about what do you feel most comfortable doing, either the opening argument or the closing argument or asking questions or answering questions, okay? So think about what role you want. And then once you know what your role is going to be, then go to that document and find that specific rubric that's specific to that role. Because you don't need to wrap your head around the closing argument if you're going to be asking questions, okay? It's just going to feel overwhelming to go through that document. So the very first page of it is the order of the speeches, and they're coded, okay? So there's a negative team and an affirmative team on this in this whole process. That's just debate lingo, okay? And when my PowerPoint finally loads, I'll talk you through that. And I might even wait until Monday. So for the weekend, I would say we're going to pick the teams in terms of which side is which, who's for Samuel Mudd, who's against Samuel Mudd, okay? And then you can do some research over the weekend, start pulling up some articles. The only thing that is actually graded by me for the debate is the debate itself, okay? So you don't have to turn in sources to me, you don't have to do an outline, you don't have to pre-write anything. That being said, you have to do research because you're going to have to be able to cite your sources because your other team is going to challenge you on them, okay? And they're going to be more demanding than I would be in terms of how valid your sources are. So if you go to something that seems kind of sketch and they've already decided that website is totally wrong, they're going to attack you on it. So just fair warning, make sure that you're going for legit websites or sources other than that, like databases probably are good for that as well. Okay, so you kind of think about what kind of role you want. Then on Monday, I would say, try to be with your teams and figure out for sure this is what we want to do. I would recommend that you guys have some kind of a way of communicating with your team. So somebody set it up so that everybody on your team has access, and you can, whether it's a Google Hangout or it's chat, whatever you want to do, so you can communicate. And then have a central place where you're keeping your debate info, okay? So if somebody has already, guys, if somebody on your team has already found this article and they've taken good notes on it, then why would somebody else on your team do the same article? You know what I mean? So if you have kind of a central location for all of your articles, yeah, we already have notes on this one, nobody else has to bother going through this one, find another one. You'll have a bigger pool of information to pull from if you aren't all focusing on the same article. Make sense? Yeah.
Wait, can we figure out the whole communication thing Monday?
That's completely up to you. If somebody wants on your team, this is what I recommend. Have one person be the communicator, the secretary type person. Okay? And if that one person from your team is willing to take a picture and know who's on your team and maybe set up some kind of communication for over the weekend, that's probably a good idea. Just so that you know who's on your team, you can touch base, start weighing in on who feels like they're most wanting to do opening argument, closing argument, whatever. If you're super techie, you could set up a Google form and set it out to your group members and find out what people want to do electronically. You could list them as options on a Google form where you send out a little survey to your team, and they can put down, I really want to do opening argument or whatever. You could set it up that way. So if you want to go super techie, that's kind of a fun way to get results. Yeah.
So there's only 4 speaking parts?
No.
Oh,
Everybody's going to speak. And there are a total of 12 speaking parts, so on a team of 9, there are 3 roles that somebody is going to have to do 2 speaking parts. Okay? So you can decide as a team whether maybe it's going to be the same person who's going to ask questions for both of the cross-examinations. Maybe the same person is going to answer questions for both of the cross-examinations. I don't think I would have the same person do both opening and closing argument because those are 2 pretty substantial things that you need to prepare ahead of time. So I think it makes more sense to spread that out a little bit more with something that's not completely pre-prepared. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. So Samuel Mudd, that's your guy. All right. Let's just have first person on the team, Muhammad and Megan. Do you want to touch base with your team first and see if you have a strong feeling of which way you want to go?
Team.
Okay. Why don't we quickly